Placing salt near your doorway is less about the object itself and more about the intention you attach to it. The doorway is not just a physical entrance. It is a symbolic line between the outside world and your inner space. Every day, people cross this line carrying emotions, experiences, and unseen burdens. You also cross it, bringing in stress, thoughts, and energy from everything you encounter. When you pause and place something as simple as salt at that point, you are choosing to become aware of what enters your life and what does not belong. There's something powerful about setting boundaries, even in quiet, symbolic ways. Many people struggle not because of what happens inside their homes, but because of what they allow to follow them in from the outside. Conversations that linger too long in the mind, negativity from others, pressure from the world. These things don't always stay where they started. They travel with you. By placing salt near your doorway, you are reminding yourself that your home is not a place for carrying everything. It is a place for releasing, for resetting, for finding peace again. Each time you walk past that doorway, it becomes a moment of reflection. You begin to notice how you enter your space. Are you rushing in with tension? Are you holding on to frustration? Or are you stepping in with awareness, choosing to leave certain things behind? This small act starts to shape your behavior. It teaches you to be intentional, to separate your outer life from your inner sanctuary. It also changes how you think about your home. Instead of just a place where you eat and sleep, it becomes a space you protect, a space you respect. When you treat your environment with that level of care, it begins to affect how you feel within it. The atmosphere becomes lighter, calmer, more supportive. Not because of the salt itself, but because of the meaning you've attached to it and the mindset it encourages. There is also a deeper layer to this practice. It reminds you that you have control. You may not be able to control everything that happens outside, but you can control what you allow to stay within your personal space. That realization is empowering. It shifts your focus from reacting to everything around you to choosing how you respond. It gives you a sense of ownership over your environment and your emotional state. Over time, this simple act becomes a habit of awareness. You stop bringing unnecessary negativity into your home. You become more mindful of your mood, your thoughts, and your energy. You start to value peace in a way you didn't before, and that peace begins to show up not just in your surroundings, but in your decisions, your interactions, and your overall way of living. What begins as a small, almost insignificant action slowly becomes a powerful reminder. A reminder that your space matters, that your energy matters, and that you have the ability to create an environment that supports who you are becoming. Keeping salt in your bedroom is not about the object itself, but about what you are choosing to release when you enter that space. The bedroom is where you return after facing the world, where you lay down not just your body, but everything you carry throughout the day. Yet for many people, it becomes a place where worries continue, where the mind refuses to rest, and where thoughts keep replaying long after the day is over. This is where intention begins to matter. When you place something as simple as salt in your bedroom, you are creating a quiet reminder that this space is meant for peace. It is not meant for overthinking, not meant for stress, not meant for holding on to things you cannot change. It becomes a signal to your mind that when you step into this room, you are allowed to let go. You are allowed to put things down, even if just for a few hours. So often people carry their problems into their sleep. They lie down physically, but mentally they are still running, still solving, still worrying. This habit slowly drains your energy. Because true rest doesn't come from closing your eyes, it comes from releasing what weighs on you. By creating a small intentional presence in your room, you begin to change that pattern. You remind yourself, gently but consistently, that rest is something you must allow, not something that just happens. There's also a sense of emotional safety that grows from this practice. Your bedroom becomes more than just a place to sleep. It becomes a place where you can be unguarded. A place where you don't need to perform, explain, or carry expectations. When you begin to associate that space with calmness and release, your body responds, your breathing slows, Your thoughts soften, and your mind begins to trust that it is safe to rest. This is not something that happens overnight. At first, your mind may still resist. It may still try to bring in noise, distractions, unfinished conversations. The more you repeat the act of letting go, the more natural it becomes. You begin to develop a small ritual without even realizing it. Each night, as you enter your room, you pause for a moment. You acknowledge what you are carrying, and you make a quiet decision to set it aside. Over time, this changes your relationship with rest. You no longer see sleep as an escape from exhaustion, but as a form of renewal. You begin to understand that how you rest affects how you live. When your mind is clear, your mornings feel lighter. When your body is truly relaxed, your energy becomes more stable. And when your emotions are not constantly carried forward, you begin each day with a sense of freshness. This simple act also teaches you something deeper about control. You may not be able to fix everything in one day, but you can choose not to let everything follow you into your most private space. You can choose to give yourself a break. And in a world that constantly demands your attention, choosing rest becomes a powerful form of discipline. What starts as a small reminder slowly becomes a shift in how you treat yourself. You begin to value your peace, to protect your rest, and to understand that letting go is not weakness, but a necessary part of moving forward. Putting salt in the corners of your home is a quiet act of paying attention to what is usually ignored. Corners are places we rarely focus on. They sit at the edges of our rooms, collecting dust, stillness, and sometimes a sense of neglect. In many ways, they reflect the parts of our lives we don't actively manage, the thoughts we avoid, the spaces we overlook. When you choose to place something there with intention, you are doing more than arranging your home. You are acknowledging that even the unnoticed areas deserve care. There is a subtle truth in this. What we ignore does not disappear. It gathers. It builds quietly until it begins to affect how a space feels. The same happens in life. Small unresolved thoughts, unaddressed emotions, and neglected responsibilities don't fade away on their own. They remain in the background, slowly creating heaviness. By turning your attention to the corners of your home, you begin to shift that pattern. You train yourself to notice, to act, and to bring awareness where there was none. As you move from one corner to another, placing something as simple as salt, you may begin to feel a change in how you see your environment. You are no longer just passing through your home. You are engaging with it. You are taking responsibility for its atmosphere. This act creates a sense of connection, as if you are saying that every part of your space matters, not just the areas that are visible or frequently used. It also encourages a deeper sense of mindfulness. When you slow down enough to focus on these quiet spaces, your mind naturally follows that pace. You become more present, more aware of your surroundings, and more thoughtful in your actions. This presence begins to extend beyond your home. You start noticing details in your daily life, patterns in your behavior, and areas where you may have been unconsciously neglecting growth. There is also a feeling of renewal that comes with this practice. Corners that once felt stagnant begin to feel lighter, not because of any physical change alone, but because of the intention behind it. You have taken something overlooked and given it attention, and that act itself carries meaning. It reflects a willingness to improve, to refresh, and to care in ways that go beyond the obvious. Over time, this simple habit can influence how you approach challenges. Instead of avoiding difficult or uncomfortable situations, you become more willing to face them. You understand that ignoring something only allows it to grow in the background. Just as you wouldn't leave a corner untouched for too long, you begin to apply that same thinking to your thoughts, your habits, and your responsibilities. This practice also builds a sense of quiet discipline. It is not dramatic or loud, but it is consistent. It shows that you are willing to take small actions that others might overlook. And these small actions repeated over time shape your mindset. You begin to value order, clarity, and intentional living in a deeper way. What starts as placing something in a forgotten space slowly becomes a reflection of how you choose to live. You become someone who pays attention, who addresses what is hidden, and who understands that growth often begins in the places no one else is looking. Adding salt in your kitchen is not just about placing an object in a room. It is about bringing awareness to a space that quietly shapes your daily life. The kitchen is where nourishment begins. It is where simple ingredients are turned into something that sustains you, something that fuels your body and influences how you feel. Yet many people move through the space without presence, rushing through meals, eating without thought, and forgetting that what they consume becomes a part of them. When you place salt in your kitchen with intention, it becomes a reminder to slow down and recognize the importance of what happens there. It shifts your mindset from routine to awareness. You begin to see that preparing food is not just a task to complete, but an act of care. Each time you step into that space, you are making choices that affect your energy, your health, and even your clarity of mind. There is something deeply grounding about being present while preparing a meal. The act of choosing ingredients, combining them, and creating something with your own hands connects you to a sense of responsibility. You are no longer just consuming whatever is available, you are participating in the process of nourishing yourself. This awareness changes your relationship with food. It becomes less about convenience and more about intention. Salt, in its simplest form, represents balance. Too much can overwhelm. Too little can leave things incomplete. In the same way, your life requires balance in what you take in, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. When you stand in your kitchen and see that small symbol, it can remind you to be mindful of what you are feeding yourself in every sense. Not just food, but also habits, information, and energy. Over time, this small act begins to influence your behavior. You may start choosing better ingredients, taking more time to prepare your meals, or simply being more present while eating. You begin to notice how different foods affect your mood and your energy levels. You start to understand that nourishment is not just about filling your stomach. It is about supporting your entire system. There is also a sense of gratitude that grows from this awareness. When you take a moment to recognize the effort behind what you eat, the time, the resources, the process, you begin to appreciate it more. This gratitude shifts your mindset from taking things for granted to valuing what you have. And that shift, though quiet, can have a powerful impact on your overall perspective. This practice also teaches patience. Good nourishment takes time. It cannot always be rushed. When you allow yourself to slow down in the kitchen, you are practicing patience in a very real way. You are learning that not everything needs to be immediate, and that some of the most valuable outcomes require care and attention. As this awareness grows, it extends beyond the kitchen. You begin to apply the same level of care to other areas of your life. You think more about what you consume mentally, how you spend your time, and what you allow into your daily routine. The kitchen becomes more than just a place to prepare food. It becomes a place where you reconnect with the idea of intentional living, where small actions reflect a deeper respect for yourself and the life you are building. Placing salt in your quiet thinking space is about creating a moment of stillness in a world that rarely slows down. Everyone has a place, whether it's a chair by a window, a small corner of a room, or even just a spot where they tend to sit and reflect. This space becomes important not because of how it looks, but because of what happens there. It is where your thoughts gather, where decisions begin to form, and where your inner voice becomes easier to hear. Most of the time, your mind is filled with noise. Notifications, conversations, responsibilities, and endless streams of information compete for your attention. Without realizing it, you carry all of that into your thinking time. Even when you sit down to relax, your thoughts continue racing, jumping from one thing to another. This makes it difficult to find clarity. And without clarity, even simple decisions can feel overwhelming. When you place something intentional in that space, like salt, it becomes a quiet signal to pause. It reminds you that this is not a place for chaos, but for calm. It encourages you to sit with yourself without distraction, to allow your thoughts to settle instead of chasing them. This small action begins to change how you use that space. Instead of filling it with noise, you start to value it for silence. There is a difference between thinking and overthinking. Thinking leads to understanding, while overthinking creates confusion. In a quiet space, with a sense of intention, you begin to notice that difference. You learn to observe your thoughts instead of reacting to them immediately. This creates a gap, a moment where you can choose how to respond rather than being controlled by whatever comes to mind. Over time, this practice strengthens your awareness. You start to recognize patterns in your thinking, habits that may be holding you back, and ideas that deserve more attention. You begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. This kind of clarity is not something you can force. It develops when you give yourself the space to simply be still. This space also becomes a place for reset. No matter how busy or stressful your day has been, you know there is a place where you can return to yourself. A place where you don't need to perform, impress, or solve everything at once. Just sitting there, even for a few minutes, can shift your state of mind. Your breathing slows, your thoughts become less intense, and your perspective starts to widen. There is also a quiet strength that grows from this habit. When you regularly spend time in reflection, you become less reactive. You don't get pulled into every distraction or emotional trigger. You begin to respond with more intention because you are used to pausing, to thinking, to understanding before acting. This kind of control is not loud, but it is powerful. As days pass, this small act turns into a meaningful routine. You begin to look forward to these moments of stillness. They become a source of clarity and balance in your life. And without realizing it, you start carrying that calmness into other parts of your day. What begins as a simple reminder in a quiet corner slowly becomes a foundation for how you think, how you decide, and how you move through life. It teaches you that sometimes the most important progress is not made by doing more, but by learning how to slow down, listen, and understand what truly matters.